The Orlando Magic are heading to Germany. The Wagners bring the Magic home this year and today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is July 30th. It will be July 31st, 2025. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, credentialed member of the Orlando Magic media since the 2012 season. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, the Orlando Magic are officially heading to Europe this January to take on the Memphis Grizzlies in Berlin, Germany, and in London, England. The Magic going overseas and bringing the Wagner brothers home with them. We'll talk about the Magic and what this means for the Wagners coming up in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. We truly appreciate all of our Orlando Magic dailies who are listeners to every episode 5 days a week during the season. However many I'm producing right now in the very, very dead part of the summer. We may take tomorrow off. We may not. We'll decide on that tomorrow. But while we still have episodes, truly appreciate all of you making us part of your day. The Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. It's not been a secret around the league that the NBA is going to play regular season games in Berlin. That was the next place, the next stop on their tour. Germany's obviously become a huge basketball hub. The German national team medaled won the World Cup 2 years ago now. They're the co-favorites to win Eurobasket along with Serbia. They've got a budding young star on the Orlando Magic in Franz Wagner. It was not a matter of if, but when. The NBA has been playing games in Europe now pretty regularly. Regular season games in Europe pretty regularly. There's been fairly regular games in London. They did the games in Paris last year. Last 2 years, I believe they did games in Paris. Berlin was next. Everybody knew it was next. Everybody knew it was coming. It is not a surprise that the NBA is going to Berlin, and it is not a surprise that it is the Orlando Magic going to Berlin with them. That's not a surprise. The Magic have Franz Wagner and Moe Wagner. Franz Wagner, certainly the brightest star in the German basketball program. It would make sense that if they're going to Berlin, they're taking the Magic with them. What I did not expect is that it would happen this season. I was expecting it in 2027. But alas, this morning, Wednesday morning, the NBA announced that the Orlando Magic will face the Memphis Grizzlies in a pair of games in Europe, starting January 15th in Berlin, followed by a January 18th game at the O2 Arena. Well, this does mean that it does mean two things, and please listen to our friends at Locked On Grizzlies. I believe they commented and talked about this on today's episode as well. It does mean two things. First, and most disappointingly, to be perfectly honest, the Memphis Grizzlies will not host a game on MLK Day, which to me is frankly sacrilegious. I get Memphis wants to expand its horizons too and go to Germany and this is when the NBA is doing this. But January 18th is the day before MLK Day. So there won't be a game in Memphis, which is disappointing because of all the great programming Memphis does around MLK Day. It also does mean that Desmond Bane will not have a return trip to Memphis this season. Unless the Magic are planning to play a preseason game in Memphis. The Magic have announced their 2 home preseason games. They'll play the Miami Heat and New Orleans Pelicans in October. Unless the Magic are planning to go to Memphis in the preseason, which could happen. I don't know if Memphis has released their preseason schedule yet. It means that Desmond Bane will not make that return trip to Memphis until the 2027 season. But obviously the story here is that Franz and Moe Wagner and Tristan da Silva get to play in Germany. Believe it or not, the Orlando Magic are quite popular in Germany. They've got Franz Wagner. They got Moe Wagner. They got two of the biggest stars on the German national team on their roster. And more than that, Franz Wagner and Moe Wagner, I'm going to say both Wagners, have really made it part of their mission to expand and grow basketball in Germany. If you haven't watched it yet, I really do recommend watching the Wagner brothers documentary. During the 2024 season, Moe and Franz Wagner had a documentary crew following them throughout the entire World Cup, throughout the entire 2024 season. It is in German. You can get it translated. You can get captions translated using Google Chrome or whatever you use. Really fantastic watch. I really did. I really enjoyed watching it. And you're not getting like crazy insight into the NBA world, but that's not the point. As both Franz and Moe have said, a big part of the reason they did the documentary is they wanted to show people back home what life is like in the NBA, the work that it takes to get there and stay there, and share their journeys to the NBA. It's not just a unique story because they're two brothers who are on the same team. It is supposed to be inspiring to the next generation of German basketball players. Just like Dirk Nowitzki inspired the Wagners to become NBA players, become basketball players, they want to inspire the next generation too. And so, of course, it makes sense that they want that the NBA wants to bring them home, wants to give their fans, give their family, to give everyone in Berlin, their hometown, the chance to see a regular season game. As Franz and Moe said, quote, to have the Orlando, said in a statement, so, statement quote, but quote, to have the Orlando Magic and the NBA play regular season game in our hometown of Berlin means everything to us. Growing up here, we dreamed of moments like this. It's a huge honor to represent Berlin and Germany and show how much the city and country love basketball. We hope we can inspire kids the way we were inspired watching games from afar, end quote. Franz Wagner was actually asked about this by Alba Berlin. He's been training at Alba Berlin. Germany started their national team camp today. So there are some photos of him taking shots. He's on the floor again in a team setting, and we'll obviously see him play next weekend, August 8th, against Slovenia. So we got a week to go there. But he said in that statement that, quote, and this was translated by Google Translate. That's still a bit surreal. I'm really excited, of course. I think it's a really cool chance to play basketball and hopefully with the Magic win. Yes, I think it's very special for Moritz and me, and I think we'll have problems getting enough tickets, but we'll try our best, of course, and we're really looking forward to Berlin. I don't think there's a better way to describe it than full circle. Franz, unquote. Franz would later say he used to go to the O2 World Arena to watch the NBA games. Obviously, in the EU, they could travel pretty easily, and dreamed of playing there someday. To come back and be on that stage is huge for him. It's huge for everybody. It is part of his why and his mission statement. Obviously, Franz is going to play a big part in all of this, and it's going to be his weekend. January 15th in Berlin is a Thursday. January 18th in London is a Sunday. That whole weekend, and the Magic will probably travel out there Tuesday, so we'll get to those consequences coming up here in a minute. This is going to be a celebration of Franz Wagner. Now, obviously, the Magic have some vested interest in this too. You may not know this, but in early July, the Orlando Magic actually did a tour of Germany. They did a whole kind of fan activation tour in Germany, did a couple basketball festivals. Franz Wagner joined them. Stuff was there. Ryan Anderson was there. The Magic are trying to engage the German audience. There's actually an Orlando Magic German Instagram account and TikTok, I believe. They're trying to engage this market, very similar to the way that they engaged the Brazilian market, and still try to engage the Brazilian market because so many Brazilians live in Orlando and travel to Orlando. Same way that the Magic actually have a very large fan base in the UK. Shout out to my Orlando Magic UK friends and the Penny for Your Thoughts crew. The Magic have a very big fan base in the UK and in London because of Shaquille O'Neal coming to town for an exhibition game in the 1992 season. It was 1992-1993 season, Shaq's rookie year. They played a pair of games against the Atlanta Hawks. A lot of Magic fans still there. I know a lot of them were super happy to see the Magic play there in 2016 against the Toronto Raptors, and are very, very happy to see the Magic return as part of that. So the Magic do have a pretty big fan base, but this is obviously about the Wagners returning home. This is about the Wagners getting to play on an NBA floor in their hometown. And that is super exciting. We're all German basketball fans here. We've been watching the German national team for the last 4 years now, since Franz Wagner joined the Magic. We've watched them. We've watched that team grow. We're excited for Eurobasket this year. There's definitely a lot of synergy between these two teams. As exciting and as heartwarming as those stories are, there's a cost to this. And we've talked about it all summer about how the Magic are trying to win championships. Let's talk, and we're not getting political here, let's talk about the international tax. We're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Knowledge is truly power. It's so easy to just spend and spend and spend and not think about where it's going. With Monarch Money, it sorts your spending out for you. It shows you where your money's going. So you can say, oh, I didn't realize I was spending that much on takeout. Oh, I didn't realize I was spending that much on subscriptions. These add up quickly and put you in a little bit of a vice. Again, knowledge is power, and manage your money with an app like Monarch Money gives you the knowledge to control your spending and control your finances so you can plan for your future or just confirm that you're doing the right things, that you're putting your money in the right places. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Everything in the NBA comes with a double-edged sword. This trip to Europe, it's obviously a huge opportunity. And like I say with the national teams, I'm never going to tell someone they can't play for their national team. Go play for your national team. Go represent your country. I'm never going to say that this is a bad thing for the Orlando Magic to go play and give up a home game, but go play in Berlin, in one of their key players' hometown. I think that matters. If it made sense geographically for the Orlando Magic to play a preseason game in Seattle, and I know a lot of Magic fans get touchy on this subject, if it made sense geographically for the Orlando Magic to play a preseason game in Seattle, I would 100% say the Magic should go play in Seattle, let Paolo play for his NBA team in front of his home crowd. This is the same deal. This is the same thing. Obviously, the NBA has its interests. It's an NBA-controlled event. It's a whole bunch of other things, a whole lot going on in here. This is a great opportunity. And in fact, it could even be a great bonding opportunity. This is already a pretty close team. This will come at about the midpoint of the season, a little bit past the midpoint of the season. And again, we'll get the schedule here in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully the next couple of weeks, probably in 2 or 3 weeks, we'll have the at least the 80 game schedule, because obviously 2 games get added for the NBA Cup. This is an opportunity for the team to get closer together and to really bond and grow in a significant way. And so there are plenty of examples of teams coming out of these games closer and ready to make a run. Especially over the last few years, they've put this game closer to the All-Star break, about 10 games away from the All-Star break. And so you get this opportunity to get a little bit of a break and get a breather, because this is the cost. This is the tax, so to speak. You're going to play 2 games in about a week. The Orlando Magic are probably going to head out to Berlin. The game's on January 15th. I imagine they're heading out January 12th, which I believe is a Monday. Monday or Tuesday, they'll head out to Germany. They'll do their activities and promotional activities, and certainly Franz will be pulled in a million different directions for that as well. They'll play January 15th, ship off to London, and then play that second game. And then they'll probably get a couple days off before they just get back into the, grind that is the NBA schedule. The fact of the matter is, there is what I have been told by some other teams. So like the story that I would tell is this. When we were covering the 2024 playoff series against the Cavaliers went to Paris that season. They played a single game against the Brooklyn Nets in Paris. And as we were talking to other reporters, just kind of getting a sense of the team that we were going to face and all that stuff, a couple of the guys that I talked to what the writers there called the Paris tax. And they believe that eventually the struggles of having to take such a long trip, and more than just taking such a long trip, how compressed the schedule became for them because they took so many days off, that became a big factor for the Cavs. Look, Cleveland still did well. They came home and won 13 of 15 games heading to the All-Star break, but finished the season 12-16 after the All-Star break. Cleveland always has a bunch of injuries, so maybe that was a perception rather than an actual reality. They struggled for a lot of reasons after the break. But it is indeed a reality that because the Magic are heading to Europe, because they're going to play, that they're going to have this week, this like 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 days, where they're going to play much fewer games than everyone else in the league is going to play. That means the schedule is going to compress elsewhere. This is the international tax. This is the tax. They did not experience this when they went to Mexico City because they, had maybe an extra day off before they got to Mexico City and maybe an extra day off when they got back. You're going to need to get your legs back. This is, Mexico City is at least, Mountain Time Zone or Central Time Zone. It's at least in the American continent. This is a much longer trip, a much different trip, a trip that will warp your body a little bit because you're, playing a noon Eastern game or a 3 Eastern game instead of a kind of an evening game like your body's used to. Now you're obviously on their time as well. There isn't statistical evidence of this because, Indiana this year went to Paris. They went 5-3 in the 8 games heading to the All-Star break and finished 25-12 after the All-Star break for the rest of the season. So it is possible to not have this sort of international hangover. But it is a reality as well that the schedule is just much more compressed. And the biggest complaint that everybody around the league has had since the implementation of the NBA Cup is because there's that week in December when everybody plays only 2 games to have the NBA Cup final. Because there's that week where everybody only plays 2 games, the schedule gets compressed at the end of the season. You play more games in shorter time because you have to take this week off. The Magic have 2 of those weeks off. They have the NBA Cup week, and who knows? Maybe the Magic make the NBA Cup final. Maybe they're going to Vegas, so that's that's more miles added to the ledger and an extra game on top of that. This may not be the year for the Magic to win the NBA Cup is what I'm getting at. The Magic have 2 of these weeks now. And that's going to pay out somewhere. Look, it's the NBA schedule. Everybody plays 82 games. Like I tell people, don't complain so much about the NBA schedule. There are some minor things that might flip one way or the other. Like you might get, a beneficial cross matchup or, the Magic play the Cavs only 3 times this year. And the Knicks play them 4 times. So that's 1 less game against the Cavs. That stuff can matter and adds up maybe. But this is the reality too. This is the reality as well, is the Magic are going to have to face a harder schedule because of this trip. Now, Memphis is no pushover anyway. The goal I would think would be to split those 2 games in Europe, and that's fine. I'm cool with that goal. It's 2 road games. You split your road games. The Magic are going to have to face a tougher challenge than their opponents are going to have to face because of this. And so it's going to be important for the Magic to be healthy. It's going to be important for the Magic to use their depth and trust their depth. And I think depth is a question for this team. And it means the Magic are going to have to come into the season really in shape because they're going to face a much more challenging schedule than their opponents because of this trip. That is the international tax. The last time the Magic played a game in Europe was 2016 when they went to London to play the Toronto Raptors. The 2016 season was the best season for the Orlando Magic under the Rob Hennigan era. Obviously, it was still not good enough. But the Magic were 19. I believe they were 19-14 or 19-13 at one point in that season. And they were already beginning to slip as they were heading into January. They won 2 games in January. They were already slipping by the time they got to London and lost in overtime to the Raptors. But they came home and lost 3 of 13 games heading into the All-Star break after that trip. They went from 2019 to out of the playoff picture. Their coach, Scott Skiles, at least by some reports, was ready to quit on the team. And everything just fell apart. This trip won't have that effect because this team's a lot better. But these trips come at a cost. And the good teams find a way to make good on that cost because the Pacers came together, made the NBA Finals. You can say a lot of things. They did that. This is an important trip for the Magic. And it's going to have ripple effects throughout the entire schedule, which we'll talk about when that schedule comes out. We need to clean up one transaction before we close today's show. Let's talk about the Magic's new two-way player coming up here in just a moment. All right, in the discussion over the last 3 days that we had with Jason Beatty, you probably heard us reference the two-way contracts and talk a little bit about what the Magic were going to do with those two-way contracts. We talked a little bit about Orlando Robinson. We talked about last week. We talked in that episode about the Magic waiving Ethan Thompson. What we did not talk about, because it happened on Friday and the podcast was recorded last Thursday, we did not talk about the signing of Jamal Cain to a two-way contract. This is the kind of stuff you get on the Locked On Network. You're in the nerd corner. Third segment's for the nerds. Let's get into the sickos here as the Magic added their second two-way players. The Magic still have one open roster spot. They're not going to be able to fill that. The Magic, by my math, are about $1.3, $1.4 million under the hard cap. They don't have enough money to sign any minimum free agents, even like a rookie minimum free agent. They don't have the money for that. They're not going to be able to sign anybody until around the trade deadline. So I think they're holding that spot open for the mercenary market at the end of the season. They still have one two-way spot left open. Jamal Cain, to me, is a really interesting prospect. Last year for the New Orleans Pelicans, he played 37 games, 5.3 points per game, shot 43% from the floor, 32.5% from three. Obviously, we're dealing with like some very, very small samples. So let's talk about what he did in games where he actually played significant minutes. He scored 25 points, grabbed 7 rebounds, and shot 4 for 7 from three. Again, in a 153-104 loss to the Miami Heat in April, played 35 minutes in that game. Scored 9 points, 2 for 4 from three, 3 for 6 from the floor in 31 minutes against the Cleveland Cavaliers in November. And another April game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. He had 18 points, 4 rebounds, 6 for 14 shooting. And then again, against the Milwaukee Bucks in April as well. This is all around the same time. I went Milwaukee April 10th, Miami April 11th, and then Oklahoma City April 13th. He scored 20 points on 6 for 15 shooting, 3 for 7 from three. So obviously he got his run. Jamal Cain, to me, obviously he has this scoring burst, and you give him a little bit of time, he's gonna find it. Jamal Cain, to me, is the kind of versatile player the Magic likes. 6'7", can play both forward positions, like has that in him. To me, he fits very much the identity the Magic are going for, and very much the kind of things they look for in a two-way player. Orlando likes high-energy defenders with their two-way players. Look, first off, they want high-level players that will dominate the G League, but they want guys like Trevelyan Queen, like Kevon Harris. Those are the two most successful two-way players for the Orlando Magic. And while they were not perfect offensive players, and I wouldn't call Jamal Cain a perfect offensive player, though I think he's a better offensive player than those two guys are, at least within the kind of system the Magic are trying to run, they're about energy. They want guys who are going to play hard, defend, do all these things that put their team in a good spot, that put their team in a good spot. You look at some of his advanced numbers, and obviously he's like small samples. In 18 games with the Heat in 2023, he had a 1.3 defensive box plus minus, according to Basketball Reference. 2024 with the Heat, 0.2. Last year with a bad defensive Pelicans team, 37 games, most significant time he's played, minus 0.8. So not like a huge negative statistically defensively. Obviously, playing in Orlando is probably going to help him out defensively. It's probably going to make him look a little bit better. The Magic have a better defensive ecosystem than those teams. And the fact that he was a little bit successful defensively with Miami when they're a good defensive ecosystem tells me that he can defend a little bit. It's a two-way signing. So I'm going to sit here and say, don't freak out. Don't go crazy. It's not that important. If you're using your two-way guys a ton, that means something's gone wrong in your season. Trevelyan Queen hit his max. He played 50 games last year. Something went wrong last season. The Magic were extremely hurt. And so that's going to remain a huge question for this team. And that's going to remain one of the big things for this team is that they're not going to need a lot from Jamal Cain. But when his number's called, A, he's going to be ready. And B, he's going to play hard and fit in defensively. And that's ultimately what the Magic are looking for in their two-way players. Now, will the Magic sign another two-way player? That is the ultimate question. What do they need? They probably need another shooting wing. In general, I think that's what they'll look for on the mercenary market in February to just kind of complete their roster and set them up for the playoffs. I think the Magic will do what they did last year and either leave that two-way spot open. And look, I said this during Summer League. I know some people disagreed with me on this. I think Wendell Moore Jr. would be a really good two-way signing, just kind of the same mold, a smaller version of Jamal Cain, where like the shot is coming along, but maybe inconsistent. But the guy's going to defend. He can play multiple positions on defense. He's going to fit the bill of what you're looking for. But the Magic typically like to just leave that spot open in case something happens. They don't want to be handcuffed to something. They want a little bit of flexibility there. And so I think that's what we'll see. Now, Orlando's going to invite a lot of these Exhibit 10 guys to camp. Those guys don't count against the cap because they're under the Exhibit 10 contract. It wouldn't surprise me if Wendell Moore is one of them. Wouldn't surprise me if like Skal Labissiere is one of them. Skal, remember, can't sign a two-way contract. There won't be a lot coming from the Summer League roster, but Orlando will still add some guys here before the end of camp. They probably already have, and just not announcing it before camp begins. But we'll see what the Magic ultimately add and how they complete this roster, because we got 2 months to go until training camp. So not a pressing concern at the moment. But that's good, dude, for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. You can, of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the Fun My City download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. You can also check us out on YouTube. Just search for Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done making Locked On Magic your first listen of the day, go check out the Locked On NBA podcast, because there is no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right. On our next episode of Locked On Magic, we are going to chat about shooting. We always chat about shooting. Shooting's really important, and the Magic finally seem invested in it. We'll talk about like Desmond Bane is different kind of shooter than Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. We'll also chat about what Franz Wagner's doing to improve his shot as Germany begins their preparations for Eurobasket. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. For Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.